Welcome back to Tabletop Assault. I'm Ross, and today I'm going to continue my segments on analysing the Chaos Space Marine Codex. Now, I've been exploring mainly the special characters in the Codex, beginning with them, so today I'm going to focus on Lucius The Eternal. How this sort of works is that I do a wee bit of a lore talk, a bit of discussion on Lucius and sort of his background, because obviously special characters tend to have a wee bit of story behind them. And then have a look at his stats and war gear, what they sort of do and the advantages behind them. And then have a look at his legion traits, what it does for him, his warlord trait, how it helps, psychic abilities, and ideal stratagems to use to get the most, the most benefit you can from Lucius. So with that, I always begin with the lore talks. Now, one thing I'd say, the thing I'd say on Lucius is he's one of the characters I'm not the most familiar with, so forgive me if I get some things wrong. Please comment, let me know if there's cool bits I have missed, and if there's anything I might get a wee bit wrong, please let me know. I've done a bit of research, try and learn about him. The other thing I'd actually say about Lucius is I've not played him yet on the tabletop. David has. David's a big fan of them, and I know Will certainly likes the idea of Emperor's Children. But I'm doing the reviews on Chaos, so I'm going to talk about him. That's how these things roll. So let's talk a bit about Lucius. So Lucius The Eternal, let's face it, is an absolute madman with a single determination. That determination was to be the most extraordinary duelist like no one ever was. Where other Chaos characters may have aspects of this obsession, Karn is out there for skulls, Fabius Bio is for science, then Lucius would be all about the duel. Obsessed with singular one-on-one combat, he takes great pleasure in perfecting his craft and treats every scar and mark as progression towards perfection. What? Okay, so Lucius from a young age proved himself a very accomplished duelist and constantly learned and perfected his art form. One thing he didn't learn is humility. If he found an opponent he deemed below his station, he would not treat it as a learning experience for him or them really. He sort of slowly toyed with them and played about until Lucius got bored and gave them a nice, usually a quick agonising death or lopped off bits until there was nothing left. Toyed around with them as much as he could. If they proved the challenge though, then he would snap into focus and really begin to enjoy the sport. Such raw talent for skill and perfection eventually drew the eyes of certain people, which led him to be inducted to the Emperor's Children. His skill and talents only improved as he trained with other skilled warriors in the Emperor's Children, and eventually gained command of the 13th Company. Now, not the sort of, I think, famed 13th Company for Space Wolves, I think that's the famed one. Very different, Emperor's Children, less hair. Debatably. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, I'm close. However, though this great honour and responsibility was bestowed upon him, he was still a real pain in the ass. Any opportunity he had to show off his skills and talents, Lucius would take it up. Anything to display his superiority to others, he would do it. During all this, for his perfection, Lucius ran into a problem. This problem was Garble Loken. I think I mentioned him in the Karn video or the Abaddon video, maybe both. He's a pretty important guy during the Horus Heresy. And Loken managed to beat Lucius, I think. I'm pretty sure Loken did win. But more importantly, he scarred him physically, I'm pretty sure. This brought about all bouts of craziness when it came to Lucius, and he began equating pain with success, often scarring himself before duels with worthy opponents. Damaging his face, his chest, I think were the most prominent things he did. Yeah, he is that crazy, clear signs of corruption, I'm gonna hack parts of me apart and, treat it as perfection. So clearly he comes to that point, during all this point, clearly comes to that point where Horus finally makes his move, on Esteban 3, where a bunch of traitor forces send their assumed loyalists down on a planet with the eventual idea to wipe them out. Talked about this a wee bit with, I think, Karn, maybe Abaddon again, it's a very important event. But it may surprise you where Karn was kept back as he was viewed as likely to be a traitor. Lucius was thought to be a loyalist, in large part due to his companionship with Sol Tarvitz, another key guy in the Horus Heresy. Now things go wrong and a fair number of the loyalists don't die as planned, and what the traitors probably, so Lucius does survive the initial strike. What the traitors probably didn't bank on is Lucius's pride. He did not like the credit that was going to his companion Tarvitz when there eventually was battle between the loyalists and traitors on Esteban III, and Tarvitz got a lot of recognition for holding back the traitors. Lucius then didn't like that, so he made a deal with the traitors with a bonus of having a chance to take on Tarvitz and prove his worth. They get into a duel, get into a bit of combat, and he does actually lose the duel against Tarvitz. I'm pretty sure he does lose, and I think there's a bit of intervention as well, but he doesn't win it. But this ultimately does seal his place within the traitor forces. So he was a bit lucky to survive Esteban III, but now he's truly a traitor. He also took part in the Drop Site Massacre. As the name goes, there was a massacre, and Lucius went along and killed some loyalists. He then later on gained a new blade to further his fighting duels and cut people apart, and further his fall to the Chaos God Slanesh. Later, I think, after the Horus Heresy, and Lucius does a lot during the Heresy, there was like loads of stories I think on him, but I'm going to condense a wee bit because I could go on about it for a while, which is not ideal, got to be talking about for ages. Lucius takes part in a gladiatorial style contest set up by the Primarch Fulgrim, and this results in his eventual defeat and slaying of Lucius at the hand of Lord Commander Cyrus. Tragic. He's cut down. However, Slanesh was having none of that, and Cyrus began to slowly horrific things happen to him over time. His armour began to warp, his hair fell out, and his face became malformed and scarred. Slowly but surely, Cyrus has transformed into Lucius, and all that remained of the former Lord Commander was the pain-wrought screaming face on the armour of Lucius. Over the next many years, Lucius has added many faces to his armour, taking pleasure from the pain and slaying he suffers from his opponents, only to have them reform into Lucius himself. You really don't want to slay Lucius because ultimately you lose. I mentioned in the Fabius Bio video, Bio and Lucius went to Camorra and learned a bunch of stuff from the Dark Elder. I think Lucius ended up fighting gladiator pits with the witches, mainly new pains he could enjoy and opponents he could prove himself as a superior duelist. However, I've got to divert a wee bit away there. I'm a huge Dark Elder fan. I'm beginning to speak about the Dark Elder. I just like to throw in a wee bit of tidbit. I liked how the Chaos Forces went to Camorra and learned some stuff. It was kind of cool. I don't think it ended well. I think a lot of people sort of died in the end, but this is 40k. So that is a bit about Lucius' lore. I've probably missed a whole bunch of it. I did condense it because this is tactical talk as well. If you get an idea of his pride, his jealousy, his skill and enjoyment on causing and receiving pain. What a swell and weird guy. So let's have a look at him on the tabletop. So let's have a look at his stats. Movement 6, he's a foot slogger, that's pretty much average. Weapon skill and ballistic skill 2+, that's what you expect from most HQ choices within the Chaos Space Marine Codex, especially one that is essentially sort of Chaos Lord stats. Strength 4, toughness 4. That is, average and fair enough. Is what you'd expect. Always nicer being at a slightly higher strength. Means you wound toughness 4 things a lot easier, and I'll get to ways you can boost that up later on. And toughness 4 is again what you'd expect. He's not designed to be the toughest of characters in that sense. 5 wounds, average. 5 attacks, yep, perfectly acceptable. Leadership 9. He's not running anywhere, but psychic abilities and shenanigans may affect it. and a 3+ save. So a bit of a lower save, but again perfectly acceptable, you know, for sort of Chaos Lord stats that is not in a Terminator armour. In terms of equipment, Lucius the Eternal he is armed with the Lash of Torment, a master crafted power sword, a Doom Siren, and frag and crack grenades. So let's have a look at the sort of war gear and what it is. So the Doom Siren is a range 8 weapon, assault d6, strength 5, -2 AP and 1 damage. This weapon automatically hits its target. Units attacked by this weapon do not gain any bonus to their saving throws for being in combat. Really solid sort of flamer weapon, which is supposed to be sort of, again you get the random amount of attacks, but it is d6, you know, and it's assault weapon. Strength 5, which is really handy, means you're going to be wounding toughness 4 on 3+. -2 AP, so you're stripping off a fair bit of armour, and 1 damage, which you've got to kind of accept. Really nice weapon, and you don't get cover from it. Doom Sirens in general are quite good, and it also helps him during Overwatch as well. He's got Lash of Torment, which is a 6-inch range weapon. Assault 2, Strength User, so Strength 4. -1 AP, and 2 damage. So a bit more higher damage, less AP, but it's 2 damage, so that's kind of nice. But this weapon can be fired within 1 inch of an enemy unit and can target enemy units within 1 inch of a friendly unit. So it basically allows him to whip out, even in combat, a bit of shooting. You know, it's like a pistol, but not. Really handy to have that extra sort of whip attack. He's also got a mastercrafted power sword, which is melee weapon, strength user, strength 4. I'll talk about ways to improve that. -3 AP, very handy to have. I think that's pretty standard for power swords as such. And 2 damage piece, which I don't think is standard for power swords. I think that's why it's mastercrafted. So having that extra 2 damage really does bump up his threat level quite extensively, and generally that -3 AP is useful. Again, no bonus to strength, but there is ways to get around that, but generally a great weapon to have. Frag and crack grenades, I'm not going to discuss because I've discussed in a video. You know, frag, grenade d6, strength 3, 1 damage, crack, grenade 1, strength 6, -1 AP, d3 damage. Grenades, if you want to throw them about, cool. He's got some great ranged weapons as well to think about. I would personally always go with Doom Siren and everything, and Lash of Torment. They're quite good ranged weapons, although very short. So in terms of abilities that Lucius does have, Death to the False Emperor, pretty standard for all Chaos guys. If you play Chaos, you're going to know about it. If you don't, it's basically if you roll a 6 to hit in the combat phase, you get another attack, and you can roll another attack if it's against a force with the Imperium keyword. Very handy, Death to the False Emperor. Armour of Shrieking Souls. Lucius the Eternal has a 5+ invul save. Not bad, not great. It would be handy if it was like Sigil of Corruption, which is 4+, but special rules, it does have extra stuff for that 5+ invul. Whenever you make a successful saving throw for Lucius in the fight phase, roll a d6. On a 4+, the unit that made the attack suffers a mortal wound after all of its attacks have been made. So, you know, I think in the previous one it was only when invul saves had effect. But it says whenever you make a successful saving throw for Lucius, so even his 3+ one, save it, have a mortal wound back in a 4+. Very nice, handy, you know, ability, you know, throw back mortal wounds. Kind of handy, not going to argue. In exchange for that you get a 5+ invul, so he's less survivable, but you can possibly get more mortal wounds on. Pretty cool. Duelist Pride. If Lucius the Eternal directs all of his attacks against a single enemy character, roll an extra 2 attacks. These attacks must also be directed at that character. So if you're coming against a character, Lucius will do better. He is a duelist, this is kind of his gig. You know, so if you are going against a character, he is not the most terrifying character in duels, but he's certainly, you know, against generalists, he will be quite annoying. Again, you know, at this stage against a character and you put all attacks into him, 7 extra attacks, and you can get more. Does make him a wee bit scary. Lastly, he's got Lord of Slaanesh. You can reroll all hit rolls of 1 made for friendly Emperor's children within 6 inches of Lucius the Eternal. Pretty standard for Chaos Lords. Pretty sure that is the case. Chaos Lord, yep. So within 6 inches you can reroll ones to hit. So very handy, very nice to have. Also does include him obviously in it. So his 2+ to hit in combat and shooting, he can essentially reroll very, very nice. So a bit of a solid character, basically more of a sort of beefed up Chaos Lord with a bunch of weapons and rules to augment on it. So let's speak about his Legion trait and how it does help him. Well, the Emperor's Children trait is flawless perfection. In general, as pretty much agreed by the community, pretty good. Basically allowing units to fight first in the fight phase even if they didn't charge. If the enemy has charged or has a similar ability, then you alternate units with the player whose turn it is taking first round. How does this benefit Lucius? Well, simply it just means that there's more threats for your opponent to think about in terms of combat order. If a mass charge comes in, then you usually spells problems for most forces. However, with Emperor's Children, you at least get to fight back in different order, which is also very handy. If Lucius is against an character, it will probably mean your opponent will try and kill him first, so as to prioritise that combat first, allowing you to choose another unit later on if Lucius is not the next best option to fight. So kind of distraction in a way, if that makes sense. You know, the other advantage of this is that there may be more important fight for your opponent to prioritise, in which case Lucius gets the advantage of being able to go second. So say there's loads of bunch of important combats, your opponent's like, I need to deal with Lucius, but there's another important one. Usually you just go, well, I charged all these units, I can choose them there. Your opponent then has to think very, very carefully, because Lucius could then whip round and kill quite a few models, or potentially a character, as he is to do. Basically, he's a combat character, so this really does help. The Legion trait really does help him quite extensively. Just makes your opponent be very wary when they charge, or in protracted combats, he can be quite deadly. His Warlord trait, Lucius's Warlord trait is the Emperor Children's specific Warlord trait, Stimulated by Pain. Add 1 to your Warlord's attack characteristic for each wound he has suffered to a maximum of 3+. If your Warlord heals the wounds, he loses that bonus. This is another Warlord trait I'm a bit dubious of. Similar to when I talked about Karn, I prefer Warlord traits that take into effect almost immediately instead of having to achieve something. In this case, it's achieved by taking damage, which is, you know, quite fluffy for, you know, Emperor's Children and Lucius in general. How this is advantage is that your opponent may want to avoid attacking Lucius with general troops, which deal low damage, as to avoid giving him more attacks. So if he's against, you know, Space Marines, they punch him for a wound, well, I'm gonna, you know, potentially give him a mortal wound if he saves it, or he'll get another attack, which is pretty handy. It's not going to be, you know, a huge advantage when it comes to like units that deal multiple damage, such as like Power Fists or another character, which generally I find once they start smashing apart, a character at 5 wounds may potentially die. If they don't though, because he's got a 3-up save and a 5-up invul, it can bring a lot of extra attacks. I think at max his trait is sitting on, once with Warlord trait, he can get up to 8 attacks. You know, it's 3 maximum depending on the wounds, so 8 attacks potentially, which is great. And in a duel with a character, it becomes 10 attacks. 10 attacks can be quite deadly, especially his head on 2s, re-rolling and wounding on 4s generally, though there's ways to advance that, and also to get more attacks. I'll talk about that pretty presently. But, you know, to get up to 8 attacks and then 10 against the character, very, very nice. It's just the problem is you have to lose wounds, and I'm not a fan of that. Psychic abilities that will help Lucius, and I won't lie, pretty similar to Karn, concentrating on damage and getting into combat, as the aim is pretty similar to them in that one. You want to get in combat and do some damage. But we do have the advantage of having a slash exclusive ability. So let's begin with Warp Time. Warp Charge 6. Pick a heretic stash unit within 3 inches, and you can move as if it was the movement phase. Warp Charge is awesome. You want to get Lucius to move into position against the enemy character to help out another unit with rerolls. This is always an awesome ability. Is Lucius the best unit to target this with? It's all dependent on the situations of the game you're playing. There may be better options out there, but as I mentioned above, with the chance of assassinating a character or help other units, then yeah, sure, it may be for him. You know, he's not quite near a unit to give rerolls. then yeah, you know, move into position, or move into position to obviously start dealing with units or characters. But it's not a go-to like Karn. Karn, you know, you want to warp charge, you know, warp time straight into the enemy lines. Lucius, there may be other units that might do more damage. So you may debate me on that one, say, no, Lucius is a solid call, you want to do that. I think the game will depend on that, but he's certainly a viable option for it. Diabolic Strength. Warp charge 6 and pick a Heretic Status model within 12 inches of the Psyker and add 2 strength and 1 attack to the next Psychic phase. So this is really important for Lucius, like really important. Like Karn, having extra attack is nothing to complain about. I mean, like wounds, that brings him I think to 9 attacks and 11 when fighting characters, which is awesome, you know. But the extra 2 strength is the most important. This means Lucius wounds toughness 3 on a 2+, toughness 4 and 5 on a 3+, and 6 on a 4+. Yep, toughness 4, 5, 3+, toughness 6, 4+. That's math. I feel it's really important to get the strength above 4, because that makes a real difference to the wounds on infantry models. Against vehicles and monsters, it may not make the biggest difference, but those aren't really targets for Lucius, because he's not going to duel a vehicle, is he? Unless that vehicle has the character rule, then yeah, awesome, let's duel. But generally, getting to above that strength 4 will have a huge effect in the damage that Lucius can bring out. He can get a lot of attacks potentially, so you really want to take advantage of that by getting that higher strength. So Diabolic Strength I think is a very solid call for Lucius. You next have Delightful Agonies. This is the Slaanesh exclusive ability. Warp charge 6, pick a visible Slaanesh Heretic Status unit within 18 inches. Until your next Psychic phase, each time a unit loses a wound, roll a d6. On a 5+, no they don't. Handy, really helpful, keeps Lucius alive a bit longer. It may bag him a few extra attacks, it may deny him a few extra attacks. You know, if you save them, then he's not going to get as many, but it means he's got more wounds. Overall, I think this may be better on bigger units. Personally, I just find it handier to keep units alive with it rather than characters. With 5+ each time you lose a wound, I kind of, you know, prefer units than characters. Who's the more valuable target? I'm not entirely sure on that one. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. Does Lucius get more of a benefit over characters? Again, it's going to be situational, but sometimes you may want Lucius to take damage, not too much damage because he dies, but enough to maybe get more and more attacks. Still handy as a preventative method to keep him alive. Stratagem Recommendations. Again, we're going for familiar territory of combat-based ones that are going to benefit in combat. Veterans of the Long War, 1 command point, using the Heretic Status infantry or biker unit in the shooting or fight phase, but not renegades. You can add 1 to the wound roll for the unit till the end of the phase. Absolutely great power. The buffs during wounding, you know, we see a lot of reroll to hits in this game, but again, you know, advantages to wound is really handy. So in the shooting phase, this can help Lucius. He does have the Lash of Torment, which may be, you know, there might be an enemy within 2 inches, you had a bit of a dueling match, they're not quite dead, well, you know, whip them, activate veterans so that you're going to be wounding them on, you know, 3s potentially, or if you've cast Diabolic Strength, 2s, and it can cause 2 damage, which might bring down, you know, a heavier unit or a character that you'd been dueling with previously, which is kind of handy. You know, if both make through, that's potentially 4 damage. Very handy against light armoured characters such as Orc war bosses without mega armour or without involve saves. So that's kind of handy. In the combat phase, then Lucius is a great target for the stratagem. Why? He is only strength 4, so adding 1 to wound roll would certainly see his damage improve. Would recommend mainly during a duel with other characters to get the full effect. Lucius may not, you know, be the go-to choice for the stratagem. It is really good. Other options may be more suitable, but again, it's going to be situational on the game that you're playing on. Veterans of the Long War is one of the best single command point, you know, stratagems I think in the game. A lot of viable options out there for it. Lucius can definitely benefit from it, especially against characters. Excess of Violence. So this is Slaanesh exclusive stratagem. 1 command point, good price. Used before an Emperor's Children infantry model unit attacking the fight phase. Each time a model in that unit slays an enemy model, it can immediately make another hit roll using the same weapon at the same target. So this will work with Lucius's ability on characters. All attacks must be directed at the same target. And if it's a character, then to activate this stratagem you've got to slay it to get the extra attacks. But those attacks from this one must go against the same target, and if it's a character it's dead. So it's going to have to go against units. This will give you 5 attacks out with sort of psychic ability buffs and warlord trait buffs. Still making them an okay choice, and especially when paired with Veterans Long War, should hopefully bring some damage to, say, Terminators, because they've got 2 wounds and you do 2 damage. And he has got a great AP to get through armour. Just make sure they don't have an invuln save, and geez oh, do I hate invuln saves. I hate storm shields. So it's kind of a key one to keep in that mind as well. So that's my talk on Lucius. Now, as I said, I've not played him very much, and I've not actually played Emperor's Children in a very long time. So I'm intrigued to see how he works. I think because he's quite cheap point wise, in comparison to a Chaos Lord, if you're playing Emperor's Children, he is a very solid choice. He does some interesting combat mechanics, he does buff the units he's around, so he's achieving all those notes at a pretty good price. So I think Lucius, for what he costs, solid call. I would definitely see him in most Emperor's Children heavy lists. Am I wrong? Let me know. So thanks again guys, please comment, share, like and subscribe. Let me know where I was right, where I was wrong, were my tactics off, where's my lore off? Did you find it helpful? Do you think maybe Lucius is not as good as I thought? Maybe it's better than I thought? Let me know. Check us out on social media where we put up some community based stuff, you know, updates on the game, as well as some projects that we are working on. So that's it guys, thanks again. And check us out on our Tabletop Assault Battle Report.